Welcome to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. We introduce you to the voices of community thought leaders and changemakers who are working on solutions that face our fellow individual community members, neighborhoods, cities, and our region. This is George Koster, your host. This episode is part of our series exploring COVID-19's impact on nonprofits and small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area. Back in April of 2020, when we decided to create this ongoing series on COVID-19's impact, first on nonprofits and then on small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area, we, like you, had no idea how long the pandemic would go on and what the health and economic impact would be in our community. With vaccinations increasing, COVID-19 cases and deaths decreasing, we're now moving into the summer of 2021 with the reopening of the economy and all of the uncertainty of our ever-changing indoor and outdoor, vaccinated and unvaccinated protocols, and the politics that will drive how we all come back together as a unified or fractured community. We will continue to shine a spotlight on the nonprofits and small businesses that make up the fabric of our community, along with the founders and staff who are struggling to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on their operations, services, and sustainability until we can all get to the other side of the pandemic. Along the way, we will also share with you all the amazing solutions that our nonprofits, small businesses, foundations, and government leaders are working on to help us all get to the other side of the pandemic and come together to rebuild our communities with more economic, social, and environmental equality.
It became important for us to kind of integrate that into our technical artistry component. And so we've definitely been listening to the needs of artists and artists of color, not only opening ourselves up as a venue for them, but also making sure that we're helping them be successful out in the grand world. And then also we have been reestablishing ourselves as a community resource. And so maintaining our food bank, our COVID testing, and also being a meeting place for the community so that they feel like there's a convening space for them.
This is the program manager of the Bayview Opera House, Ashley Smiley. The Bayview Opera House, Ruth Williams Memorial Theater, was founded in 1989 and is one of 6 city-owned cultural centers operated by nonprofit organizations providing cultural and arts programs. The city-owned cultural venues host performances, festivals, and gallery exhibits, offer free or low-cost classes, and are funded, at least in part, by the San Francisco Arts Commission. For more information on the Bayview Opera House, please listen to our interview with Barbara Ockel, the Executive Director, in Part 1 of our special series, Doing Business in the Bayview, in the archive section of our website. I'm joined remotely by the Program Manager of the Bayview Opera House, Ashley Smiley. Thanks for being here, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
I would love it if you could provide the audience just a quick overview of who Bayview Opera House serves and, some of your key programs, such as your education. You guys do live performances, and you really have become a community center during the COVID episode.
So the darling, wonderful, beautiful Bayview Opera House, it's best seen from 3rd and Newcomb, and we really try and serve the Bayview Hunters Point artistic community in particular. So we really pride ourselves on being an arts and culture venue. So, live music, dance, theater, poetry, but also recognizing our history within the community as being a place that serves the community. We also definitely during COVID started doing a food pantry, COVID testing. We're also holding more kind of town hall meetings for the District 10 or for the Bayview community in particular. And, some of our signature programs, we are the host venue for the National Night Out, which is an event that bridges the community and the police force in the Bayview. And so that's going to be really interesting post-pandemic, post George Floyd murder and the year that we've had. And so we're a host for that, and that happens annually. We also have our technical artist internship. It slightly changes form based on, what our other events are. But basically, it's a 4-month course that teaches anyone who's interested the basics of production. And it's kind of like a training ground. So they learn lights, audio, stage management, production management, and all the necessary things you need to run a show. They also get hands-on experience with our live events. And then they have the opportunity to kind of become a part of our core team and be a part of our future productions. But also, we're really trying to make sure that people are trained well enough to go work for the union or work for other venues and start their career in that technical background. And then we also have the San Francisco Girls Chorus. Initially, we just had one level, but now we have 3.5 levels. And so we're working with the SF Girls Chorus. We have our prep chorus, which is for girls 4 to 5, our training chorus, which is for girls that are, I think, 6 to 8. And then we also have our level 1, which is about 7 to 11. And that's just a really fantastic opportunity for young girls to, really discover their voice. One of the things that I always say is that even if you're not necessarily planning on being a singer per se, understanding your voice, being able to read and write music, understanding rhythm, songwriting, all really beneficial in terms of translating that to wherever you go. And they form a really beautiful kind of connection, not only with the girls chorus, but also with each other. And so there's a community there as well. And right now we have their summer sessions going, which is it's fun. It's been interesting having it be virtual, but still very beneficial. And then outside of that, we have guest performers come in and do productions, and we're evolving.
Well, that leads me to my next question, which is obviously as a performing arts space and really a community center, so much of all of the activities, prior to COVID were all in person. Then you had this pandemic. How did you and the team respond to that? And then, the follow-up would be, as we are allegedly magically now all reopening and coming back together, how is the Bayview Opera team responding to that?
Yeah, when pandemic hit, we did what every other arts organization did, which is freak out. We're a very small team with a big building and big dreams. And so we took the moment to kind of go, okay, who are we? And what are we focused on? And what do we want to show ourselves as? And Barbara was really great in going like, okay, so we know that there's a Zoom world happening. Let's figure that out. Our director of programs at that time, Allegra Madsen, was like, we still need to show up here somewhere. And so during that time, I was able to write and direct a Zoom-inspired web series called The New Normal, which featured performers from the Camposanto Performance Collective. We also had a Harry Potter story time, so we were able to gather together about 17 local Black and Brown artists to read a chapter from the first book of Harry Potter, not only as a way to kind of give something interesting to the kids, because all of the artists got to create their own set and background and use voices and do whatever they wanted to do, but also to employ artists who were very much in need of some kind of financial something during that initial period. And then we also created our Art 6 Feet Apart, which was hosted by our technical director, Z Perdomo, and Droid, her co-host, and they actually worked together with a local Black artist to have virtual art classes. So they would teach different classes regarding drawing fundamentals, and that was like a weekly series. And so we just kept trying to figure out how we could be visible and be a part of the conversation in a virtual manner. And then we realized that there were key programs that we needed to pay attention to as well. Like, we have Black History Month. We were like, what are we going to do for Black History Month? It's usually in person. And so we actually created a series of videos highlighting different Black artists. And Z really worked hard on, editing them and kind of showcasing thing. And we had a virtual Juneteenth in which we conducted community members, and then had a really beautiful conversation afterwards about how much people don't know about Juneteenth and how to educate people about it. And then, Kwanzaa, also virtual. So I hosted kind of like a daily Kwanzaa series. So at every turn, we were, looking at different platforms, different programs, different ways to show up, and also supporting local artists. So the Camposanto Collective, Rising Rhythm, and a few other organizations wanted to do virtual screenings, but they didn't necessarily have the programming software or the capacity to do so. And so we would actually host their screenings, and they were able to hold them as fundraisers so that they could keep moving as well. So that was it. We just tried to expand our idea of creativity and how we wanted to move while being distinctly Bayview and ourselves. Yeah, this weird magical reopening, like COVID never happened. It's crazy. And we've been doing a lot of work on, one, making sure that we stay safe and aware. So another thing that happened was we realized that the Bayview community, it's a food desert. And so we worked with the SF Marin Food Bank to do a food pantry every Monday, which is still going on, to make sure that folks in the community could have access to fresh food and groceries while things were shut down. And we also became a site for COVID testing. We recently had an event that did COVID vaccines. We really wanted to make sure, again, because the Bayview was one of the areas hit extremely hard by COVID-19, it was pretty devastating. We wanted to make sure that folks had good and easy access to free testing. And so now on our way back, we still hold COVID testing. We still hold the food pantry because those things are still necessary and needed. And we've actually been doing a lot of construction on the building, not necessarily COVID related, but COVID gave us a good opportunity to get things done in there, like new floors and a new blue curtain and all of these other things that will allow us to kind of reopen in this new way. And we did a lot of community outreach with artists and different organizations to figure out what they wanted to see and what they felt was missing from the Opera House. And so recently, we just had two really awesome Juneteenth events. The first one was with the SF AIDS Foundation and Black Brothers Esteem. And that was a very low-key celebration of sorts in which they handed out free food. There were free COVID vaccines for people to get, and a lot of information about AIDS and HIV in the Black community, but also resources for queer folk of color in particular, because they're a severely underserved population. And then on Saturday, the 19th, the official Juneteenth, we had a really, really, really beautiful event that was in person, and it was crazy, but it was beautiful. And we held it on our outdoor stage, and we had a bunch of local artists come and play. There was like blues and jazz. There was positive hip hop. There was live poetry. There was dance. And again, also making sure that folks had access to resources. So like Causa Justa, Just Cause was doing information about housing resources, especially with the upcoming end of the eviction moratorium and things of that nature. And Open Door Legal was also there. It was really fantastic. It was interesting leading up to it because we knew that the city was going to reopen. So we knew that there was going to be not just pressure, but genuine requests to see the Bayview Opera House reopen and be accessible again. And so we planned a very, very small Juneteenth celebration that was come hear some jazz in the backyard. And then as things were we're going to be reopening all the way, the release of COVID restrictions, and also just a lot of feedback from the community. We had a lot of artists that were actually coming to us. And so we curated a really fantastic in-person event. And it was interesting to do something in person, but it was also really beautiful to see people in our outdoor space enjoying each other and enjoying music and culture in our space. And that's really what we want to go for in the future with everything we do.
So, Ashley, what do you feel has been the biggest impact of the Bayview Opera House on the performing arts within the Bayview, but also you do this workforce training with your apprentice program, and then there's the education and community center aspect?
I think our biggest impact has definitely been for the artists. We're trying to position ourselves as a hub for arts and culture in the San Francisco community, in particular for Black and Brown artists who are displaced or underserved. And so definitely the work that we've been doing has been a lot of outreach and conversations with these different artists, hearing what they need, and then incorporating that into our development. So when we realize that folks need to understand the importance of headshots, or people are saying they need help with resumes or getting proper for, performance photos or portfolios or things of that nature, it became important for us to kind of like integrate that into our technical artistry component. And so we've definitely been listening to the needs of artists and artists of color, not only opening ourselves up as a venue for them, but also making sure that we're helping them be successful out in the grand world. And then also we have been reestablishing ourselves as a community resource. And so maintaining our food bank, our COVID testing, and also being a meeting place for the community so that they feel like there's a convening space for them. And so those are the two areas in which I think have had the biggest impact.
So folks who are listening to the show, how can they support the Bayview Opera House? I mean, there's donations. Can folks volunteer? If you're an employer, for example, and you're looking for people to help, do events for you or production, how can folks get engaged?
If you go to our website, bvoh.org, there are different ways where you can donate. We are an arts organization in the Bayview, in the city, and so we don't always get the funding that helps make everything easier for our community to be a part of. And so that's always helpful. No one's ever going to deny that. But also, if folks want to reach out to me personally at Smiley at bvoh.org, then that's an opportunity for them to sign up to volunteer and also pitch ideas. We're always really open for folks to pitch ideas about what they would like to see at the Opera House or what they would like to produce at the Opera House. And so those are the ways to get involved and keeping up with us on our social media platforms. So right now we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as BV Opera House. And then we're also on Nextdoor and on Twitch as Bayview Opera House SF. And that's really the best way to communicate with us and stay updated with what's going on. Always looking for volunteers, always looking for community partners.
That's great. So final question, what would you see as some of the positive things that could come out of this crisis to support performing arts in our artist organizations and the public engagement and support of the performing arts ecosystem?
It's a good question. I think the best thing that can come out of it is the renewed idea and sense of what being an artist in this time means. I think a lot of people have had a really fantastic opportunity. I know we've taken the opportunity to look at what does it mean to be an artist? What is the role and responsibility of an artist? And then also understanding if this is how we are seeing the importance of artistry and artists in San Francisco and the Bay Area, then what do we as a venue need to offer to make sure that they can be their best selves? And I think that and that opportunity to change how we show up in the world is definitely going to be the biggest impact. And that's definitely the most positive thing that we can do.
Great. So thank you, Ashley, for sharing the Bayview Opera House's programs and status of reopening to the community. We'll make sure that listeners have your contact information, website, and social media, which you gave everyone, which is wonderful. So that way they can follow the Bayview Opera House's productions and programs and hopefully get engaged. Please stay safe and healthy as we work our way through this very strange new normal. That's it for this episode of Voices of the Community. You've been listening to the voice of the program manager of the Bayview Opera House, Ashley Smiley. To find out more about Bayview Opera House's programs, to volunteer, donate, and to produce events there, please go to bvoh.org. Ashley spoke about the Bayview Opera House hosting the San Francisco Girls Chorus program. You can find out more about the San Francisco Girls Chorus in our interview with Adriana Marcial in episode 30, who shares about their work to teach young women to become wonderful musicians through their extensive music education program. Please tune in to KSFP 102.5 FM and next week's show on July 15th at 8:30 a.m., where we share the voices from Miracle Messages about their Miracle Money pilot program to help bring stability to our unhoused community members through direct cash transfers and its impact. We hope that you enjoyed the insights, points of view, and personal stories from the voices of changemakers and their nonprofits and small businesses featured in this series. To find out more and get engaged with the nonprofits, small businesses, and staff members featured in the series, please go to my website, georgecoster.com and click on Voices of the Community to find links to the extended versions of these interviews and to listen to the entire series. After listening to these stories, we hope that you will consider making a donation and volunteering to provide a hand up to your fellow community members. I want to thank my associate producer, Eric Estrada, and Casey Nance at Citron Studios, along with the wonderful crew at the San Francisco Public Press and KSFP. Voices of the Community is a member of Intersection for the Arts, which allows us to offer you a tax deduction for your contributions. Please go to georgecoster.com and click on the donate link to make a donation to help us provide future shows just like this one. While you're on our website, you can enjoy our archived past shows, which feature community voices working on solutions to critical issues facing Northern California communities. And you can sign up for our newsletter to find out more about future shows, as well as shows and events from the organizations that are included in our episodes. Take us along on your next COVID walk by subscribing to Voices of the Community on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at George Coster, and we'd love to hear from you with feedback and show ideas, so send us an email to george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster in San Francisco, and thank you for listening.